this unit is covering two different topics. We're going to talk about predicting, and then we're going to switch gears and talk about summarizing. They are both things that happen in your brain while you read. Predicting happens really while you read. Summarizing is more actually of an after you read, but you will rely on details that you picked out as you were reading. So when we talk about predicting, we're going to be talking about a cause and effect relationship. And more specifically, we're going to throw these two new vocab words out at you, explicit and implicit. So when we teach English, I've said this before, we give you a concept and then we wrap back around to it and we go to the next level. So we've done predicting. We've looked at drawing conclusions earlier this year and even earlier this trimester. And now we're going to add cause and effect relationships because part of predicting is looking for patterns. And then what we're going to see is that pattern really easy? Is it clear to find? Or is it maybe a little bit harder to find? And so we'll look at explicit and implicit. And then we're just going to do a quick review of summary. And I will ask you one question about summary. Okay, so cause and effect. A cause is the reason for the event, and an effect is the outcome of the event. Okay, so cause is the reason, the effect is the outcome. We've got a great little cartoon here, and this dad is saying, what do you mean it just happened? Didn't we just discuss cause and effect? So obviously, we're seeing the effect. We're seeing a broken lamp. And we need to guess the cause. It's pretty clear, though, that a little boy next to a broken lamp with nobody else in the room, he probably knocked it over. So let's look at some other cause and effects. So think in your brain. You don't have to type anything down. But what would the effect be if it snowed for a week straight? How would that impact you and your life and your neighborhood? What would the effect be if you got a part-time job on the weekend? You could have a little bit more pocket money. Maybe you want to start saving up for a car or something that's super special to you. I love this visual, though. What would be the effect? What would the effect be if an elephant jumped into a tiny pool? I love that visual of a big elephant jumping into a tiny pool and then causing a huge ripple. So let's practice our cause and effect. See if we can make some predictions, and then we'll look at explicit and implicit. So let's just refresh our memory about making predictions. Here we go. Okay, hold on a second. All right, here's our videos. Okay, a little baby boy has just been given a glass Christmas ornament. What will happen? Let's check your prediction.
Got that one on video.
Were you right?
Day.
Okay, so you see this, and you see the dog with a treat, and you see stay. So now your brain is making predictions about what might happen. Keep watching. Now there's a baby involved. Now what do you think is going to happen? Was your prediction correct? One more. Okay, so this lady, she has a huge sheet cake. She's having a hard time opening the door. She's asking the guy, like, can you stop filming this and just help me, please? What's going to happen? Did you see that happening? Okay, so this ties in to explicit and implicit. This is actually an implicit example that what you thought was going to happen maybe didn't happen, because I thought she was just going to drop the cake and that would be funny. I didn't predict that somebody would be coming in the door and she would get a cake in her face. That switches it up just a little bit. Oh, that's good stuff. Okay. If you really want to keep watching the videos, they're in the slideshow. Okay, here we go. So let's talk about recapping cause and effect. So cause and effect, they work together in stories to help the reader predict and understand what happens. And so sometimes the cause and effect is really obvious. Like it's pretty clear based on the clues that something is going to happen. So if something is obvious, if something is clear, and you can see that these two things are related, and this clearly caused this other thing to happen, it's called explicit. If there's a cause and effect relationship and it's a little bit more subtle or it's harder to see, it's a little bit more hidden, it's called implicit. Okay. So one of the ways that you can help remember the differences is explicit means exterior. So this prefix X is about being obvious and clear on the outside and on the outer. So you have the exterior, you have an explosion. Im is like inside. So when somebody implodes, they fall in on themselves, or it explodes inwards. So here's some examples of explicit or implicit. I said, here's a guy, if you don't give me a pay raise, I'll leave. That's pretty explicit. He's saying directly what he means and what's going to happen. Give me a pay raise, or if you don't, I'm leaving. That's pretty clear. This one is implicit. It is a little more subtle. You have to infer a little bit, to dig a little bit. I said, if you don't show more appreciation, I'll review my options. So this is implicit because this guy, he's not being as specific. Like, I can show people appreciation without giving them money. I can just write them a thank you note. And what does review options mean? Well, normally when somebody says review options, they do mean that they're going to look for work elsewhere. But this is a more subtle way. Some of you might know this phrase, passive aggressive. This is a little passive aggressive way. It's not super clear. It's a little bit sneakier. It makes the other person put the pieces together. Okay. So true or false? True or false? Let's recap explicit and implicit definitions. Explicit means obvious. Explicit means there is an obvious cause and effect relationship. True or false? So click on this. Tell me true or false. Explicit means obvious. Next. Implicit means subtle cause and effect relationships. It's a little bit more hidden. Is that true or false? This is true. So implicit means subtle and explicit means really obvious. We're going to work with this a little bit more. Okay. So here's an example of a situation, of a cause and effect situation. I want you to tell me if this is explicit or implicit. Okay. So is this cause and effect relationship explicit, super clear, or is it implicit? You kind of have to draw some other dots and conclusions. Your jacket is wet and it is raining outside. Is there a clear connection between those two things? Or is there an unclear connection? Maybe another reason. So your jacket is wet and it is raining outside. Do we have an explicit, a clear connection, relationship between those two things? Or is it implicit, meaning not as clear? Yes, this one is explicit. It's raining outside and your jacket's wet, so you probably went outside and got your jacket wet. How about this one? So is this cause and effect relationship explicit or implicit? Your jacket is wet and it's sunny outside. Is that a super clear connection? Or is it a little bit harder to see the connection? Is it a little more subtle? So clearer connection, explicit, a little bit harder to see the connection, implicit. Okay, this one is, what do we have? Yeah, this one is implicit because it's not super clear how it being sunny outside contributes to your jacket being wet. But when I was writing it, I was thinking maybe it was sunny outside and so you went for a walk, but then somebody was watering their lawn with a sprinkler and then it got you. Or maybe you had, maybe there was a flash shower. I don't know. Okay. So we're going to practice cause and effect relationships with one more example, and then we'll move on to summary. So we're looking at the cause and effect relationship in this short story. We've got Dalton and Daniel. Dalton and Daniel were great friends. They rode their bikes together nearly every day after school. Their favorite part of riding bikes was exploring trails that they had never seen before. On one sunny afternoon, they rode out past the edge of the field behind their school. They were racing up and down the hills when Daniel noticed a trail they had not ridden before. So pause, make a little prediction. What do you think they're going to do? It says that their favorite part of riding bikes was exploring trails they had never seen before, and then they noticed a trail they had not been on. So, prediction. Let's see if you were right. The boys decided to explore this new trail. It was an easy ride, but the trail was rocky and not well marked. Sharp branches hung low in many places, and the boys had to bend low to avoid them. What fun they were having. When the sun began to drop near the horizon, they decided their adventure was complete. When they reached home, Dalton's mother noticed that his shirt was ripped in a couple of places. As Daniel put his bike away, he noticed that one of the tires was flat. Okay, so our story, let me summarize it. Daniel and Dalton, they go on a bike ride. They're like, dude, we've never been down this one before. Let's go. And it wasn't super well kept up. It was a little rough. And they get home, and now Dalton's shirt is ripped, and Daniel has a flat tire. So can we make some connections? Can we see a cause and effect? Can we see an action and then the result of that action? So the branches, we have sharp branches on the trail, and that caused Dalton's shirt to tear. The road was also rocky. The trail was rocky. So Daniel got a flat tire. So here's another way of looking at cause and effect. Now, if we're trying to decide if this is explicit or implicit, well, let me break it down. This is explicit. This is a pretty clear story about a rough situation and trees with low-hanging branches, and then they got their shirt cut and a flat tire. So it's explicit because you can see that there's a pretty clear connection between the rough trail and then the outcome of their bikes and bodies. But if the story had not pointed out the low branches, it would be harder to figure out why his shirt was torn. Maybe he got attacked by a wild animal. So if there weren't as many clear details, then the cause and effect relationship would be implicit. But because it was super clear and we were able to chart this out pretty easily, this is explicit. Okay, so how are you feeling about cause and effect predictions? Take a second, reflect, check in with yourself.